Welcome everyone to this Info Day session on ChallengeMyCity Madrid. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Luis Puerto. I'm the director of the factory area within EAT Urban Mobility. And today with me, I have two more people that will be presenting here today. One is Lola Ortiz. She's director of the mobility planning department of the City Council of Madrid. And also we have Anne-Laure Aslanian, who is a program officer at our PMO, Program Management Office at EAT Urban Mobility. And all of us will steer you through the details of this call for solutions on challenges for Madrid. So if we can go for next slide. Yeah, here we can see the next hour, how it's going to be organized. So first of all, I will provide you with some details, general objectives, general requirements of this call. Also, along with Ms. Lola Ortiz, she will also explain what are the three challenges that we are opening for solution providers. And then Anne-Laure will explain general important also conditions of this call about the calendar, how long is it open, the evaluation process, how is it going to be like, the partner registration process, also important things, how to apply, what documentation needs to be submitted, financial aspects and cost eligibility, and also aspects about project implementation. And then we will have 15 minutes for Q&A that you can already start texting in the chat, in the Q&A box. So use that to type. And meanwhile, some housekeeping advice. Please mute your microphones, write your questions as they raised in the Q&A box so that we can read them by the end of this presentation. Also, for all of you to know, this meeting is being recorded, and the record will be available on the call webpage, which is the one that you can see down in this slide. That's the address that where you can find all the documentation associated to this call, and you will be able also to find and share the recording of this session if that's needed as well. Okay, so let's start with the first next slide, please. So what is ChallengeMyCity? Just as a general presentation, ChallengeMyCity is a program at EAT Urban Mobility where we, as a partner organization, are partnering with cities in order to define specific mobility challenges and find solutions, innovative solutions that can address them. Importantly, when we work, and that's the work that we have performed over the past months with the mobility planning department officers of the City Council in Madrid, what we do is to define those challenges according to the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan, so the political agenda in terms of mobility of the city, and also the future investments that the city is going to perform in order to improve and upgrade its mobility infrastructures. So associating those challenges that we are opening today to the political agenda and the investment agenda is what I mean, it's at the core of this program, and should also in the future raise more opportunities to establish long-term implementations in the city. So yeah, that's what we are working on now. Just for you to know, the pilot implementations are funded by the EAT Urban Mobility, so we're offering our funds for innovators, but also there is support from the city from an implementation point of view. There will be an administrative support from the city when it's needed for the implementations. Also important for you, I guess, is that the solutions will be impact assessed by the end, which is also important in order to decide in the future how to procure services by the city, and also for the solution providers to have a proof of the impact that their solutions can provide, which is also a benefit that you can get for the awarded solutions. So the next slide. The challenges, what are they? We have 3 challenges, as you can see. One of them is related to logistics, and the other 2 are related to active mobility. The first one is a logistic hub for green last mile delivery that later on will be explained in more detail. The second one is a challenge related to increase the safety on cycle lanes, on bicycle paths, and also at the same time, or alternatively, being able to monitor cyclist flows, but always with the aim of finding out the shortcomings in terms of safety and the opportunities to improve safety for cyclists in the city. And the last one is about monitoring what is the behavior of mobility flows in one newly open urban space for pedestrians, cyclists, so that understanding how this new public space is used will help the city council to improve it. As I mentioned, this is going to be explained in more detail later on by Ms. Lola Ortiz. Importantly, also for you to know, maybe you are thinking of submitting proposals for more than one challenge. If you are thinking of doing that, please submit one proposal per challenge. So if you are planning to apply for challenge B and challenge C, you should be submitting 2 proposals, one for each of the challenges you are addressing. Next slide. General requirements. This call is open for all types of applicants. As you know, EIT Urban Mobility has its own partners, but this call is open for both partners and non-partners, and all of them are welcome to participate. Applicants, however, are expected to be an SME, that has to be located in a member state of the EU, or alternatively on a third country which is associated to Horizon Europe. And you can, of course, consult if your country falls into this description. There is public information on the European Commission website. Proposals have to be in line with the vision and mission of the EIT Urban Mobility Strategic Agenda. So make sure that your application refers to that. Our strategic agenda is one of the documents that you have available in the call webpage that we have provided. Then what we want is that solutions bring novelty beyond what's available already in the market, and of course the proposals are results focused, so they really address the challenge that is described in the call document. Importantly, also a couple of comments. We expect solutions to propose to EIT Urban Mobility a financial sustainability mechanism that I will explain later on what does it consist about. And also we are targeting solutions that are in a TRL stage 7. So the technology readiness level has to be 7, and that should be proved by providing a letter of recommendation from a previous pilot implementation for the solutions. So that's a requirement, eligibility requirement actually. So we will only accept proposals that really comply with this requirement. About the proposal itself, okay, what do we expect you to write in your proposal? It has to be concise, so writing more is not what we want. Sometimes less is more, but be very concise in what you propose. And that actually means describe the high-level execution activities to implement the solution in the city, the timelines, the milestones associated, importantly, a budget breakdown according to our rules that Law will explain later on, but include this budget breakdown per activity, and also what will be the different roles of the team that is going to be in charge of the implementation. Other things that we are asking you to provide in your proposal. We want to describe performance metrics, since we are going to assess the solutions in an impact assessment evaluation by the end of the implementation of the solutions. We want you to propose what are going to be the performance metrics that your solution can provide, and that refers to climate, social, and economic impact. So how many, CO2 emissions can be saved, how much energy consumption, what's the social impact in terms of social interaction, job creation, all of these impacts on the local economy, if that's the case. All of these impacts will need metrics, and we would like you to propose those metrics already in the proposal. And finally, another important aspect that you have to include in your proposals is a marketing and end user engagement plan. So you have to define what is the target audience that you are addressing with your solution, how you will disseminate and communicate information about this to the users so that the engagement is maximized. And please, let's get to the next one. Okay, so beyond the proposal, some other aspects that have to be included beyond the description of the activities is the key performance indicators. This is a crucial aspect that you have to include in the proposal. We as ERTM or Mobility have defined a set of different key performance indicators for our activities. And there is a document also in the call page where you can consult them. How are they defined? And so how do you have to comply with them? And for this specific call, we are asking 2 mandatory KPIs. So any proposal submitted has to include at least the first 2 mandatory KPI for any challenge, A, B, or C. There will have to be an innovation pilot scaling KPI included, at least 1. Normally it would be 1. And also a marketed innovation, which means actually that the solution that is proposed will be launched to the market and will generate at least 10,000 euros in revenues over the next months. So these 2 are commitments that we mandatory ask for any submission to this call. There are a non-mandatory KPI, more social impact related, especially or specifically for the challenges B and C, which is public realm improvements, because those 2 challenges actually have to do with that. This is another key performance indicator. You can read the definition in the document on KPIs, and it's about improving the public realm through the intervention, through the project that you will implement. So please make sure that you include those KPIs, the mandatory ones, and if that's the case, also the non-mandatory one that will be positively assessed, of course. Then moving on to financial sustainability mechanism, what does it mean? It means actually that our funding is asking for a return, and this return can happen in different ways. Okay, of course, this is actually good for you because the 2 ways that we are asking as a financial sustainability mechanism is on a preferential way. First, we would like, in case that you are a startup, to get equity in exchange for the funding that we will provide. And this actually will be a benefit for you because you will see what does it entail actually. Second, if we are talking not about a startup, but an already established company, a scale up, for instance, what we offer is or what should be offered is a subscription to our Growth Lab program, where startups and scale-ups can get dedicated services to grow and to scale in the market. So it's actually both of them in the end entail being more supported by ERTM Mobility to succeed and to grow in the market. So what are those benefits for offering equity in exchange for the grant? What are those benefits for subscribing to the Growth Lab in exchange of our grant? The benefits that you can get, of course, during the implementation of the pilot, it's support from an ERTM Mobility officer that will help you through the implementation, defining the metrics, what is the data that we want to collect, also about also different implementation administrative aspects, permissions. There we will have also city officers supporting you on that aspect as well through the implementation of the pilot. But also what you will get is also an incorporation to our catalog of solutions EAT Urban Mobility labeled. So you will incorporate your solution to our marketplace. And that means actually being promoted physically and digitally across Europe. Also more dedicated services, and you will be in our portfolio of solutions. You will get support in scaling, meeting other opportunities to grow your business. So, and that will happen whether you offer an FSM on equity or a subscription to the Growth Lab. Both things actually entail getting this support for scaling in the market. So next is the deliverables. For all the 3 challenges, there are 4 main deliverables that we are asking for. The first one, the first week after the start of the project, and this is something that you should actually already have because you will have already conducted the previous implementation. So the technical installation requirements, including health and safety aspects to that, is a deliverable that we are asking for. But of course, as I mentioned, if you already have implemented a pilot in the past, that should already be available on your site. But of course, it has to be adapted to the conditions that you will see in the description of the challenges. The second one is a short report describing what are the metrics that are going to be used and the data, associated data that is going to be collected. And that's something that we will define together with your first input from your proposal, but also adjusting them bilaterally with us during the first month. So defining what are going to be those metrics to assess the impact at social, economic, and environmental level. And then the third one will actually consist of the data sets associated to those metrics. So we will ask you to collect the data throughout the project. And by the end of the project implementation, then what we will ask you is to provide those data sets so that a third party, an independent third party, can perform the impact assessment. And finally, what we would like to have as final deliverable is a final report, including the outcomes, the outputs, the things for improvement, of course, pictures, and all the related material about the project itself. And that also will help you to get more dissemination, more promotion, so that will also actually be a benefit for you. Of course, the impact assessment is something very important also to scale in the market, to prove that past interventions have produced a positive impact. This is important for the city, but it's important for you as solution provider. So this is also actually a benefit that you would get. Next one, on the budget, you may already have read this in the call document, but just to emphasize this, the challenge A, the logistic hub for green last mile delivery, will be awarded up to 60,000 euros. Challenge B, safety for bicycle paths and monitoring of cyclist flows, 50,000 euros, and monitoring active mobility flows in new urban spaces, 50,000 euros. Good thing for you also is that the co-funding that we ask for you is there is no specific co-funding actually, so we don't ask you to subsidize part of the project. But if you do, if you do that, in case of having several proposals that have this very similar score, that could be a final factor for decision. So bear in mind this, we don't ask for co-funding from your side, but if you do, that eventually, in case we have to separate or to choose one out of 2 very similar proposals, that could be a decision-making factor. So having said this, I think, yeah, I can give the word now to Lola. Welcome, Lola. Thank you for being here today, for you to explain the challenges.
Thank you, Luis, and good morning, everybody. And I'm going to introduce the 3 challenges that we have in this call. And Madrid is working in the implementation of the strategy Madrid 360, and we are working in a good way to promote the sustainable mobility. And that's why we are going to present this challenge. The challenge A is Logistic Hub for Green Last Mile Delivery. And the objective of this challenge is to manage and operate the space that collects goods from large distribution industry and deliver them to the final client by means of green and zero emission vehicles. These kind of vehicles can be cargo bikes, electric bikes, and so on. The applicant can be an SME or a startup on their own or a consortium of companies. And the innovation can be demonstrated by proposing an innovative last mile services for the city and also by proposing new ways of delivery. For example, using innovative e-bikes, cargo bikes, delivery optimization software, and so on. And the successful applicant will be responsible for the installation, operation, and maintenance of the solution implemented through the pilot project. And at the beginning, the preliminary location will be in Moncloa Mobility Hub. And next, please. Here we can see more or less where is the location. In Madrid, Moncloa is a very huge mobility hub with a lot of different modes of transport. We have metro lines, buses, and there are a lot of movement because it's very near from the university and because we are in the center of the city, well, near the center of the city. Next slide, please. The challenge B is the objective of this is called safety for bicycle paths and monitoring of cyclist flows. And the objective is to test innovative solutions that can provide increased safety through the use of smart signaling devices, new lighting techniques, and so on. In Madrid, we are focused on the security in all the streets and overall in the sustainable mobility. And the system can enable enhanced safety by monitoring cyclist flows of users through the implementation of sensors or similar small solution. The devices should be easy to install and install. They will be implemented between Plaza Castilla and Chamartín. It will be a new cycle line that we are going to implement it. So it's a very, very good point to make here this challenge. And the objective is to upgrade the safety and or the quality of the current cycling infrastructure and to guarantee the safety of all cyclists and monitor its use to incentivize the uptake of bicycles in the city mobility system. And as I have said before, the location for fixed innovation will be between Plaza de Castilla and Chamartín. And of course, other innovation may be free floating in the rest of the city. This is more or less the location between Plaza de Castilla and Chamartín in the location map. Please, next slide. And the last challenge, the challenge C, is monitoring active mobility flows in new urban spaces. In this case, a pedestrian active mobility zone in Puerta del Sol has recently been developed by the Madrid City Council, and the objective is to understand the impact of such areas in the city center from a social, economical, and environmental point of view. The proposed technology solution should be able to collect data autonomously, analyze it, categorize type of users, and enable the City Council to get an in-depth understanding of mobility flows and interaction in such area. It's a big area, it's the most important area in pedestrianization area in the cities, in the city center. So we are very worried about how is the implementation and how it works. The solution provider must be able to implement an intrusive technology to collect users flow data and create a dashboard of reports of comprehensive analysis with recommendation for the city. This is very important because it's an historical part of the city, and it's important to implement this intrusive technology. And the location, as I have said before, is in Puerta del Sol. It's in the center, the city center of Madrid, and it's a very interesting challenge because now we are implementation a lot of different pedestrianization area, and with this study we can scale up this new knowledge for the other rest of the park, no? So this is the 3 challenges and the objectives to obtain for these challenges. Thank you. And now I think Luis, you are going to continue talking.
Yeah, we're going to give the word now to Anne-Laure, who is going to explain the details about different aspects related to the submission, etc. So Anne-Laure, the floor is yours.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Luis. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start to give you in a nutshell a little bit the calendar of this call, just to highlight the main 5 steps of this call for proposal. So the first, of course, is the call period. So as you all know, the call was open on the 20th of April and will be open until the 20th of June at 5 p.m. Central European Summer Time. So it's really, really important that you don't miss the timeline, the date, and of course the hour, because if you submit a proposal 1 minute after the deadline, it will be already late. So please take into consideration this timeline. After the call closes, we're going to start with the admissibility and eligibility check. This is done by us at Program Management Office at ERTM Mobility. So we're going to check according to 7 different criteria that I'm going to show you in the next slide. If your proposal meets all of those criteria, if this is a yes, then your proposal will go will continue the evaluation process and will be evaluated by external expert evaluators and internal experts as well. This will be done in the month of July. Afterwards, most likely if your proposal is selected, also if it's not selected, you will receive a communication with an explanation. And if it is selected, actually, you will also receive some condition that your proposal will need to meet in order for it to be funded. And in the end, after this period where you comply with those conditions, you will receive the final communication, most likely at the beginning of August, and then you can start your activities. So this is a little bit the calendar. You can look at more information in this link where in the call manual where it's more explained in more detailed. Next slide, please. In terms of the evaluation process, again, it's very well explained in the call manual, but just to give you an overview of the main features here, the first is as I said, the admissibility and eligibility check. So what we do is we look into these 7 different criteria, and we say, yes, it complies or not. Okay, so the first, of course, is the completeness. So if your proposal has been submitted on time within the deadline via the Plaza submission tool, I will talk about that later in English, with all the mandatory sections that is needed in the application form. The second is the applicant profile. So as we said earlier, involve SMEs located in an EU country or third associated countries to Horizon Europe. You also have the link in the call manual, if you can take a look at those countries. Applicant eligibility. Again, there is also a section in the call manual in section 2.2 where we actually give a definition of what an SME is. We follow the European Commission definition, and there is also other aspects that need to be considered to be eligible in this call. So the location, of course, the number of people involved in your team, the percentage of capital share, etc. So take a good care of this eligibility check and make sure you are eligible and you comply with them, and you are fully registered in the EU participant portal and in Plaza, and also we go back to that later. Next is mandatory KPIs. This is also a very crucial point. So your proposal really must address these 2 mandatory KPIs. So innovation pilot scaling with a target value at least of 1, and the other, which is marketed innovation, also the target value, which is 1. Then letter of recommendation from a city, of course, or a client, where you can demonstrate actually that your pilot was already carried out. You have already previous experience with that. We also need this letter of recommendation as an annex to the application form. The same with the registration certificate. We also need to make sure you are an SME. And finally, the pitch deck. also as an annex to your application form, you can find also the content of what we are looking for in this pitch deck in the call manual, but also in the application form. The next slide, please, the quality evaluation. So if you're eligible, okay, and you pass this first step, the second will be the quality evaluation of your proposal. Okay, the first phase of this quality evaluation is will be organized by 3 external expert evaluators plus 2 internal evaluation experts. When we say internal, they belong to EIT Urban Mobility. They are expert in the thematic area, and 1 rapporteur. What they're going to do is to assess your proposal and also your organization. They will look into several criteria according to the team capability, the impact, the excellence, and the implementation of your proposal. Okay, everything is also very well detailed in your the call manual. You can look at exactly what kind of criteria they will look into. So we most likely is to look into this table and correctly make sure you answer each of these criteria. What they're going to do is to produce an individual evaluation report for each proposal. After that, they're going to meet in a consensus meeting, and they are going to actually produce a summary evaluation report. Most likely the rapporteur will put all together the different individual evaluation report, make a consensus on the comments, and of course on the scoring for each of the proposal, and this will be the final, let's say, report of your proposal. The following step, next slide, thank you, next slide, is the pitch and the portfolio selection. In this phase 2, only for proposals that have a scoring of 40%, equal or above 40% in phase 1, the previous one, will be invited actually to present a project presentation, so a pitch, to the selection committee and to the city Madrid representative person. So again, the pitch content is in the call manual, also in the application form, so look at it, what we are asking for. The selection committee or members, the CEO, the CO, and representative from the different thematic areas at EIT Urban Mobility, they are going to actually assess your presentation. And based on phase 1 scoring and phase 2, sorry, there is a miss, phase 2, the pitch, they are going to make their decision, final decision, ranking list based on the final pre-selected proposals. And after that, they will, as I said earlier, they will make a list of different conditions and recommendations that your proposal need to comply with before getting the fund. Okay, when we talk about conditions, they are strict. You must actually comply with those conditions in order for your proposal and your organization to get the fund. And when we are talking about recommendations, as you may imagine, it's a recommendation, so you should address them, but they're not directly linked to the condition of the funding. Okay. And the final step, of course, will be the communication of the results. So after all these steps, you will receive a communication from us with the summary evaluation report, so the fiche, the summary, the comments with a different score of your proposal, together, if this is applicable, with the conditions and sometimes some recommendations. This is, of course, including, and this is important, the financial sustainability agreement, or a letter of intent to be signed together with us, with the EIT Urban Mobility, to make sure that before we start the activities, this agreement is actually signed. And this is the final step of the evaluation process. After that, you can start your activities. As the main steps of the partner registration process, I've put here some kind of the 3 main steps that you need to follow. It's not a big deal, it's very easy, straightforward, but it needs to be done very early, as early as possible, because it's a, when we are a little bit stressed, the deadline is coming, right? Is around the corner, and you still need to do this kind of more administrative stuff. You might miss some of the steps, and most likely maybe miss the opportunity to apply to this call. So please follow these steps as soon as possible. The first is to obtain your PIC. The PIC is an participant identification code. It's just a number, 9-digit number, a code that you need to obtain in order to participate in any European projects, actually. So If you have already a PIC, you don't need to do that step. You go directly to the second one, unless you want to edit something from your, again, from your fish or your PIC number, but otherwise go to step 2. For those who don't have any PIC, please click on the link. It's just a 10 minutes work, so it's not a big deal. Follow the different steps. Everything is also explained in the guideline for applicants. And you obtain this PIC number and you keep it with you. And this PIC number actually will follow you in any other European opportunities and funding and calls or whatever. So this is your single PIC number that you can use for everything. The second step is the registration in Plaza. So you also, via this link, you need to click on it and you will need to comply. Again, it's a very, very short one-page document that you need to do. You need to enter a code, but this step actually take us a couple of working days to do that, because we need to actually approve your organization, what you are saying, to the type of organization you are, etc. So this is a manual step that we need to do by our services. So we really recommend you to do it as early as possible, starting from even today, if you like. And of course, never before 2 days before the deadline, because if it takes 2 days for us, then you are a bit in a rush and maybe we have some, issue and we cannot validate you. This will be also have an impact in your application. So please do it as early as possible. And the last step is the PIF, the partner information form, which is actually just one pager of your organization information, a little bit more in depth about, what type, if you have an affiliation with other organization, your financial information, point of contact, etc. Okay, this also needs to be filled in before you can actually enter into Plaza and fill in your application form. Okay, you can, again, all the steps are explained in the guideline for applicants. Here, the message is: do these steps. Enter in Plaza as soon as possible, then you can start with the application form, and it quite simplify in the sense that you will just need to download the application form. It's a Word document which is available in the website. Complete all the different sections, and then you put it as a PDF and you upload it in the system. Okay, in the Plaza system. So it's very straightforward, but again, before going into this final step, you need, of course, this registration. Next step, please. In terms of cost, eligibility, and financial aspect, just to tell you that ITMO Mobility, we follow the same rules as Horizon Europe. So I don't know if you have experience with this type of grants and funding opportunities, but we follow the same rules. I've put here the link to a very huge and long document, which is the annotated model grant agreement, where you can find all the different rules, principles of the cost, eligibility, and financial aspect. But to simplify your life, we have put together a short document, which is here, eligibility of expenditure. You can also find it here, the link, and in the call website as well, when we have summarized for you just the main principle of the cost, eligibility, and financial aspects. But if you want to go into the very much details, you have this annotated model grant agreement. So just as a summary, kind of cost that you can put in your proposal and will be most likely eligible are the direct costs. So they are directly linked to the implementation of your project. These can be personnel, subcontracting, travel, equipment, other goods and services. I just wanted to tell you here about the subcontracting, because it's really, we look into that, and expert evaluator look into that in the IT as well. They really need to, we say there is a kind of limitation in the total budget. So we usually say it's 15%, no more than 15% of the total budget. And it has to be for a limited part of the project, okay? It doesn't have to be a major task in the project. So really a small part of it. And following, of course, the best value for money. So it's according to your national regulation rules, you need to do some requirement stuff and select the best actually offer to subcontract and to help you actually implement your projects. In terms of indirect costs, they are not directly linked to your project, and they are automatically calculated. It's 25% on top of the personnel and the travel, equipment, and other goods and services. In the application form, you will see there is a table when you need to put all the different cost categories plus indirect cost. Here you need to calculate yourself because this is not done automatically because we are using a PDF, a Word version. But bear in mind that this corresponds to the 25% of personnel. And finally, I just put here as an indicative payment schedule for you, just to also have an idea of how the payments will be done during this implementation of the project. So the 50% of the EAT funding will be allocated to you after signature of the subgrant agreement and the financial sustainable agreement as well. 40% will be allocated, will be sent after the interim payments, and the 10% at the end, after the final report. And I think the final slide, next please, is about this, just to give you an idea of what this project will look like with a 5-month duration. You will start at month 1 with a kickoff. You will have during the project implementation, as Ruiz mentioned earlier, some deliverables to produce and to send to us, and at least a couple of KPIs, mandatory KPIs also to comply with. In the midterm implementation of the project, you will be asked to send us a very simplified interim report so we can also trigger a payment. And at the end of the project, you will be asked to submit a final report, including the cost reporting, and then will be also linked to a final payment. And I think the very final slide is about just sharing with you some useful links and contact details for the EU portal. If you have any technical issue, you can also contact the European Commission to obtain your PIC. Then Plaza, if you have any concern about our online submission tool, you can also contact our service desk. And finally, of course, if you have any question regarding the call, the content of the call, you can contact our colleagues from factory. And us at PMO, if you have any questions, anything related to all the procedure that I'm just talking about, evaluation, the call calendar, financial aspect, etc., etc. So I think that's all from my side. We can maybe start the Q&A. And I see there is some questions also on the chat. So I'm going to start. Thank you for answering the one. So maybe I'm going to start with the first one. Does the budget to project number 2, so I guess challenge number 2, include the cost of deploying the sensors, or the municipality will cover that? Do we need to work with specific subcontractor to allow deployment with the municipality? Will the municipality help with getting all the approval for deployment? I get this question.
I think I can answer. Yeah, the grant can cover the cost of deploying the sensors for sure. So you have to budget that in your proposal. Then, if you need installation, then you and to subcontract the installation, then you should also add that as an activity in your budget breakdown. So the purchase cost of the sensors, specifically as a direct cost of this intervention of this project, has to be included on eventual subcontracting cost if you need to for the installation. Of course, any permissions and any paperwork that is associated to that, you will get support for that as well.
Thank you, Luis. I think the second question is about the challenge P. Is it only focused on biking or other micromobility means of transfer like e-scooters, or can be included?
Well, it's about upgrading the safety of the cycle network. It's called cycle network, but we know bike lanes are also used by other micromobility devices like kick-scooters. So both types of vehicles. I mean, Lola, if correct me if I'm wrong, but since cycle lanes are used by both bicycles and e-scooters, then both devices should be okay.
Yes, of course, because and I think it's interesting, to know how these security measures can help the cyclists and for the scooters. So yes, of course, the new separate cycle line are going to be used by cycling and by cyclists and of course for scooters. So yes, we are going to evaluate everything that happens in this cycle line.
Thank you. Thank you, Lola. I think we can take the next question. The pilot has, sorry, Luis, you are already answering this one. The pilot has to be in a new facility or could in an already exist one?
I guess it refers to challenge A. I think we should find it out because facility, I mean, could be referring to other challenges. But if it's on challenge A, the expected location is Moncloa Mobility Hub, where several mobility service, train, metro merge. So that's the pre-selected location, and that's in principle where the Logistic Mobility Hub will be located. And if you refer to the challenge C, then it's Puerta del Sol, it's a square. And if you refer to challenge B, then it's a specific cycle lane for fixed solutions, solutions that are fixed on the ground or fixed in a specific location. It has to be on the connecting cycle lane between Plaza Castilla and Chamartin station. But in this particular challenge, there can be other solutions more based on free floating measurements.
Thank you very much, Luis. I think the next question. Sorry,
I want to add something to what just said Luis, please. For the question of the logistic hub, so it's an existing location, so parking, but then it needs to make some works to close the space. So I don't know if that was the question. But yes, this is an empty space now, covered, because it's a parking, but with the budget, you will need to make the works.
Thank you very much, Alice. We have this question, I think it's for Max, our colleague from Finance Department. Thanks for joining, Max. The question is the 15% of maximum subcontracting cost, is that from the total budget for the pilot or for direct cost only?
From the total budget, because I mean it's an internal rule we have applied in order to limit the amount of subcontracting. If your proposal has a higher amount, if it's well justified, of course it's not a problem. But we think that a higher percentage of subcontracting might not necessarily be advantageous for the project, and as our objective is that the funds go to the partners themselves and they execute the task because they have the knowledge and the expertise in the field, not the subcontractor. If a subcontractor has a significant part of the budget, they should rather than be included in the consortium. If this is not possible because of some reasons, then please put this into proposal, and we will of course take this into consideration.
Thank you very much, Max. The next question is regarding challenge C. Could you explain what goes behind active mobility? Is it walking only, or does it include shared mobility?
Maybe Lola, you can add here, but in Plaza del Sol, I understand that active mobility will include both pedestrians and.
Yes. In this area, in focus on this area, yes, we have pedestrian people, and of course we have cycling and scooter, because we have a separate cycle line. So yes, we are going to measure everything. So active mobility in general.
But remember that it has to be all of the active mobility, not just one group.
Okay, I think we can move on. We have this other question about if we are fabricant of electric vehicles for delivery, can we apply for challenge A? if we don't have the means of an installation, or do we need to partner up with another SME that has the space?
Yeah, the objective is to exploit the facility. So in this case, you can partner, you can be providing the innovative solution, but in this case, you should partner with an entity or another SME who is going to exploit the service.
Thank you. There is another question. Can you provide details about how sensors can be deployed? For example, light poles specification, if there is either electricity 24 hours, 7 days per week.
Well, in this case, I think this is a very detailed question. I think this should be addressed also along with the city officers, and depending on the location, of course, there has to be power supply. This is something to be arranged, but in principle, please make your proposal, count on what are the conditions that you would need to in order to deploy it, and then it can be assessed. But of course, solutions that are self-sustainable in terms of energy supply are welcome also. But if you need a power supply, this is something to be arranged, and it will depend very much on the availability of power supply in the area. But it's not expected to do additional works to bring power supply to that location.
Okay, Luis, we have this other question about the challenge B. Does the system have to be both for safety and for counting, or can it be just one of them?
Well, in challenge B, the objective is safety. So if you can, and that's what has to be addressed, but whether you address it by counting and tracing, tracking anonymously, of course, cyclists and kick scooter users, that is up to you. If your device is based more on tracking users, and then by means of your analysis determining safety issues that have to be addressed, then that's actually addressing the objective. So always, however is your device based on, counting or directly physical separations, innovative ones or whatever, it has to address the final objective, which is upgrading the safety of cyclists and cycle lane users in general.
Okay, we have this final question about, could you also precise the cost of the EITM Mobility Growth Lab subscription?
Not at the moment. This is something that we have to check with our corresponding thematic area and other thematic area running this Growth Lab subscription. But it should be less than 10,000 euros maximum, as it is today. But let us check and come back to you with this question. You will find our email address on the call webpage for all of you, actually. So use that email address, put that question, and if we cannot respond directly now, as it is the case, then we will reply to you by email. So any further questions you have also during the next days, you can also put them there, and you have our email addresses in the call webpage.
Thank you, Luis. There is this other question in the chat. So the first one was about for foreign companies, just for all the rest of the entities to be informed. So for foreign companies to be incorporated in Spain for this challenge. So indeed, the call is open to all European member states and also third country associated to Horizon Europe. So the company doesn't need to be located in Spain, actually, can be from any other European countries. And the other question is about if you produce charging and parking station for micromobility vehicles that have big data collection system, can we apply for challenge A, B, and C, or just for one challenge?
I mean, if you think your solution can address the objectives that have been described in the call document, and so read carefully each challenge in the call document. That's the main thing. And if you think that your solution can in some ways address any of the challenge or all three challenges, then you can propose or in all three challenges. But if you do that, make sure that you make 3 proposals, 1 for each challenge.
We don't see any other questions on the chat or on the Q&A. I don't know if there is, we can take another one if you like. No, I don't think. I don't see any other questions, neither comments.
Okay. So if there are no further questions, then we are 2 minutes already before the final the deadline of this meeting. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending this webinar Info Day. Remember, all the documentation, including this recording of the webinar, will be available in the call webpage. And there you will also find our email addresses. If you have further questions, please write to us. We will kindly respond as soon as possible. So thank you again, and looking forward very much to reading your submissions. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.